In his first term, President Trump radically changed the Middle East.
We're here this afternoon to change the course of history. We take a major stride toward a future in which people of all faiths live together in peace and prosperity.
For the first time in decades, Arab states were recognizing Israel's right to exist and even making peace with Israel. We're going to talk about the longest-standing boycott against Israel and how Israel's recent battlefield victories are going to reshape the Middle East as we know it. I'm Josiah Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys. Israel's re-entry into the Middle East after a 2,000-year hiatus was not met with a warm welcome. In fact, the day after Israel declared its independence, its neighbors attempted to wipe it from the face of the earth. 6 Arab nations declared war on the reborn Jewish state. That war ended in 1949, with Israel beating the odds and emerging as the victor. But that didn't put an end to the Arab League's boycott against Israel. In fact, that boycott is still in effect to this very day. The boycott started out by focusing directly against Israel. It aimed to cripple them economically and politically. Essentially, it was meant to crush not only Israel's economy, but also anything that would contribute to Israel's military strength. Eventually, this expanded to a secondary boycott against non-Israeli companies for the crime of conducting business with Israel. And then, because that wasn't working, the boycott reached a third stage, which was to boycott companies that did business with companies that did business with Israel. I'm sure you can imagine how well that's going. Given all that Israel has contributed in the fields of medicine, technology, defense, agriculture, and so much more, this boycott ended up backfiring, and many Arab countries have suffered because of it. In 1979, Egypt broke with tradition and normalized relations with Israel. This was a massive change to the status quo and was a result of a peace treaty at the Camp David Accords in 1979.
Ladies and gentlemen, this afternoon, historic documents concluding the Treaty of Peace between the Arab Republic of Egypt and the State of Israel will be signed.
President Jimmy Carter witnessed the signing of the treaty in Washington, D.C. between Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Tragically, radical Muslims assassinated Egyptian President Anwar Sadat 2 years later during a military parade in 1981 as a direct result of the signing of this peace treaty. The peace agreement also came with a heavy cost to the nation of Israel. In exchange for peace between the Jewish nation, Israel agreed to give up the Sinai Peninsula. Israel also gave up any potential financial gains from the Suez Canal, which is the major sea trading route between Europe and Asia. It bypasses Africa, cutting transit time by 30%. Egypt usually makes about $10 billion per year from the Suez Canal, but that amount dropped to around $4 billion in 2024 because of the Houthi attacks on shipping vessels in the Red Sea. Even still, that's a huge amount of money that Israel could have potentially had claims to had they not forfeited the Sinai Peninsula. Interestingly enough, though, the Houthis are actually helping Israel in a roundabout way that I'll discuss in just a moment. Before we get to the Houthis, you can clearly see that the loss of the Sinai was very significant for Israel. However, the greatest loss came through the precedent it set. Land could be traded for peace. And while Egypt and Israel's peace had held relatively stable despite the challenging circumstances, it didn't work out so well the next time around. Golda Meir correctly saw the folly in trading land for peace, as if peace was only for the benefit of Israel and not also for the Arab country it was making peace with. Menachem Begin, who gave up the Sinai, obviously did not understand the far-reaching consequences of his decision. In 1994, Jordan was the second Arab nation to normalize relations with Israel. The situation surrounding this treaty, while similar to Egypt's, is also significantly different. At the time, nearly half of Jordan's population were of Palestinian descent. A peace agreement with Israel could easily be interpreted as Jordan abandoning the Palestinian cause, and given the demographics of Jordan at the time, there most certainly would have been riots in the streets and possibly the toppling and assassination of Jordan's King Hussein. Jordan's position was further complicated by the fact that it occupied and then illegally annexed Judea and Samaria in 1948 and in 1950, respectively. Even though the only two countries to recognize their annexation of Judea and Samaria were Great Britain and Pakistan, Jordan went ahead and granted full citizenship to the Palestinians that were living there anyway. Given the immense pressure between the Arab world and Israel, what could have possibly changed that would allow for a peace agreement between Israel and Jordan? Before I answer that question, I want to give you something practical you can do to support Israel. If you, like many people I know, love Israel but aren't able to make it over here to the Holy Land, or if you are inspired by the Jewish families living out God's promises on the front lines, or if you simply want to walk out God's words to Abraham in Genesis 12 of blessing the nation of Israel, then you need to check out our friends at Blessed by Israel. What these guys do is bringing the amazing products of families of the biblical heartland to people all around the world. From the land of Israel straight to your doorstep, you can enjoy awesome products like extra virgin olive oil, coffee roasted to perfection by Agro Cafe, which I absolutely love and drink at least one, most of the time 2 cups a day here at the office, delicious raw honey, jewelry, organic spices, handcrafted ceramics, and much, much more, all from wonderful, small family-owned businesses in Israel. Be a part of encouraging and investing in the people of Israel and enjoy high-quality products at the same time. Head over to blessedbyisrael.com to purchase beautiful boutique products and make your impact today. You can use the code INVEST for $5 off your first order at blessedbyisrael.com. That's blessedbyisrael.com. You can also find the link down in the description below. So, what changed that allowed Israel and Jordan to establish peace? The first intifada. Picture this: an Israeli truck driver crashed into parked civilian cars outside of the Jabalia refugee camp in the Gaza Strip in December of 1987. The accident killed 4 Arab workers, 3 of whom lived in the refugee camp. Israel maintained that the crash was an accident, but the Arabs believed it was deliberate. The day before, a Jewish businessman was murdered in Gaza in a knife attack, and the Arabs believed that this truck crash was intentional. Now, remember, during the first intifada, Jordan was responsible for the West Bank. They had illegally annexed it 38 years prior. The unrest quickly grew violent, and Jordan was no longer interested in managing Arab life in Judea and Samaria. In 1988, they effectively washed their hands of anything west of the Jordan River and formally relinquished any claims they held to the land. They canceled the citizenship of most of the residents of the West Bank and simply walked away. The exception, of course, is the Temple Mount, as even to this day, they maintain a custodial role over the entire site. It's very important to note that Jordan did not do this in any manner that would jeopardize their standing in the Arab world. The last thing they wanted to be accused of was abandoning the Palestinian cause. Even though the first intifada was the reason they no longer wanted to control the territory, it also gave them the perfect opportunity to walk away from the mess that it was. The handoff wasn't without criticism, though, as the move effectively caused the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria to become stateless. This was a messy situation for everyone, and despite the criticism, Jordan was happy to hand over the problem to the PLO in 1988. Previously, I mentioned that the next peace agreement did not turn out well for Israel. This peace agreement was between the PLO and Israel. The first Oslo Accord was signed in 1993 in Washington, D.C., and the second Oslo Accord was signed in 1995 in Egypt. These are the accords that divided Judea and Samaria into areas A, B, and C. Unfortunately, this was a disastrous decision by Israel, and the consequences of this terrible mistake are still being felt today. Remember how the Israel-Egypt peace treaty resulted in the assassination of Egypt's president? This time, the signing of the Oslo Accords resulted in the assassination of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. It wasn't jihadists this time, though, but instead a radical 25-year-old Jewish man named Yigal Amir. Yigal was immediately arrested and sentenced to life in prison without parole. He's still there today and reportedly does not regret his decision. The murder of Yitzhak Rabin is attributed to derailing the momentum of the Oslo Accords. In 1994, during the year between the two Oslo Accords, Jordan made the bold decision to normalize relations with Israel. It's said that King Hussein of Jordan consulted with both Egypt and Syria. The Egyptians, who had already signed a peace agreement with Israel, gave their blessing, but the Syrians staunchly opposed the idea. It is actually Syria who still maintains the extreme boycott against Israel to this day, or at least they did up until the fall of Assad. In 1979, when Egypt made peace with Israel, the U.S. sweetened the deal with a pledge of $1.5 billion in economic relief, as well as another $1.5 billion in military aid. This aid was intended to modernize Egypt's army and also steer Egypt away from Soviet influence. Currently, Egypt receives the second largest amount of military aid from the United States, second only to Israel. Similarly, the U.S. also provided significant financial incentive towards Jordan in exchange for making peace with Israel. For one, they forgave $700 million of debt that Jordan owed to the United States. They also significantly increased their annual economic assistance. America also promised to help Jordan militarily. Jordan really wanted F-16 fighter jets to modernize its aging Air Force, and in 1996, the U.S. delivered their first batch of airplanes to them. Trump appears to be following the same strategy with Syria. Syria's new president, Ahmed al-Shara, has expressed openness to the idea of a peace treaty with Israel, and Trump has lifted sanctions on the war-torn country in exchange. Lebanon, once a stronghold for Hezbollah, is also said to be considering joining the Abraham Accords, although nothing official has yet been announced. Both Assad in Syria and Hezbollah in Lebanon were strongly aligned with Iran. Now, they're both becoming increasingly irrelevant. Israel's current showing of strength, including the impending destruction of Hamas in Gaza, the embarrassing defeat of Hezbollah in Israel's strong attack against Iran's nuclear facilities, have not gone unnoticed by its neighbors. It's very clear that Israel is winning, and Iran and its proxies are losing this war. No one wants to be on the losing side, and with the taboo already broken by 4 other nations joining the Abraham Accords, both Syria and Lebanon understand that now would be the time to cast their lot with Israel. The Houthis, of course, are making the decision easier as well. When one of their missiles managed to evade Israel's defenses and explode on a roadway leading to the Ben Gurion airport, Israel's response was clear. The retaliatory attack against the Houthis completely destroyed their main airport, significantly damaged one of their ports, and took a cement factory that was being used for terrorist activities offline. Even though the Houthis have continued their attacks, Israel instead decided to largely ignore them. The message this sends is clear. The Houthis' best is not even enough to warrant an immediate response from Israel. They have bigger fish to fry. Once the Gaza war is finished, don't be surprised to see Israel pivot to Yemen, similar to what they did to Hezbollah during the ceasefire in Gaza. Iran, who used to hold significant power in the Middle East through its terrorist proxies, has suffered blow after blow after blow. The Middle East is on the cusp of significant change. This time, it appears to be for the better. Please continue to pray for wisdom for Israel's leaders, as well as for our own President Donald Trump. And also pray for the enemies of God, because God's desire is that none should perish, but that they would turn from their wicked ways and serve him. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out Blessed by Israel to support the pioneers of Judea and Samaria and get amazing products at the same time. Go to blessedbyisrael.com or just click that link in the description below. Subscribe and get the conversation going down in the comments below. We love interacting with you there. If you'd like to support our work here at The Israel Guys, head over to theisraelguys.com/donate. Also, there's a link in the description. And remember, as always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what is happening here in Israel. We'll be back soon here at The Israel Guys.